Hi, welcome to our next video in our EBI speaker series. Today, I have with me Gino Segre, who is the managing director of Baker Labs. And I'll let Gino introduce himself real quick.
Simon, thanks for having me on today. So, I am the managing director for the Baker Labs incubator at the UC Berkeley campus. And prior to that, I was the incubator manager at QB3, which is a state institute focused on the life sciences and life science entrepreneurship. And the three in QB3 stands for three campuses: UC Berkeley, UCSF, and UC Santa Cruz.
All right, so let's jump right in. So our first question to start off is, what is the difference between an accelerator versus an incubator? And what are the different kinds of accelerators slash incubators out there?
Thanks for the question. So accelerators and incubators are designed to nurture the growth of fledgling startup companies. And startup companies require really a broad array of resources to advance. And the accelerator model, one example of which is Skydeck at UC Berkeley, is designed to deliver a fixed curriculum over a fixed period of time that helps really teams that have no experience find their footing in what it means to be a startup company. And you can probably look online to see what that kind of curriculum looks like, but basically talks about fundraising and law and finding customers and defining a product and literally 36 other topics. So usually an accelerator will provide some cash to start the operations of the company in exchange for equity, an ownership stake in that startup company. And at the end of the accelerator program, there is usually something called a demo day in which the companies debut and basically provide a pitch, usually to an audience of investors. On the incubator side, which is really what I focus on, particularly in the life sciences, is we provide lab space for startup companies that have a technical need and milestones to reach. So the labs and office space is very specifically designed to help just a small startup company. And typically they will pay rent. And so that idea is that it doesn't cost very much to rent just a bench and maybe a desk. So that's really kind of the fundamental difference between accelerators and incubators. And accelerators and incubators can have different owners and therefore have different focus. So when you look at an accelerator or an incubator, find out who's running that program and what their interests are. Sometimes they have a corporate focus, meaning that they're aligned to the corporate goals of that accelerator or incubator.
All right, and I think you touched on this briefly in your answer just now, but could you talk a little bit more about why exactly these incubators are helpful for new startups and companies? Like what kind of motivated the creation of this kind of model of an incubator?
Yeah, prior to the development of accelerators and incubators, it was very difficult for companies to really launch because the market was not really well served by, say, just a kid with a credit card and an idea. Generally, what was being offered in the marketplace was something that was very expensive, too big, and just generally not a good fit. And so the market understood that new products, namely accelerators and incubators, are actually valuable and they could speed the creation of value and products in that. So really, when you look at an accelerator and incubator, really think about that value that it brings. If you're a startup entrepreneur, think about the value that it's going to bring to the growth of your company. And how could you achieve that in any other way? Your growth.
Mhm. Okay. And how did you personally get involved in the startup slash incubator field? And what are your main responsibilities currently as the managing director of Baker Labs?
So I have been in the life science industry for actually about 20 years, and I've had a lot of different posts in different companies. And most recently, I came to QB3 about 4 years ago. And QB3's mission is really to bring all the different resources that startup companies uh, need. So whether it be capital or talent or expertise in certain areas, and really try to convene the ecosystem that supports startup companies. So keep in mind, every starting entrepreneur should recognize that there are lots of people out there who can help you. The challenge is for you to find them. So QB3 really tries to focus on convening the ecosystem, curating, finding the strongest programming, um, and helping the entrepreneur to navigate. So, as a slice of that, as the managing director of Baker Labs, I need to figure out what resources would best serve startup companies. So, in building Baker Labs, I need to create the right space that has the right equipment in it, because the focus is on life science startup companies. Other resources that I can bring and that we are bringing to Baker Labs include industry partners who will be interested in the members' technologies and products and may wish to assist in and may be helpful in assisting their growth. And my other responsibilities are growing the team that would support the smooth operation of the incubator and also getting the word out and recruiting startup companies. And part of that is creating the community of entrepreneurs within the incubator. And community is really important because nobody builds a startup company on their own. And if you have really a single facility, really an amazing one like Baker Labs, you can attract a broad range of talents and create a spirit of collaboration amongst startup companies, even though they're each pursuing really different goals. So they have shared challenges and they do have shared solutions. So that's my responsibility in creating Baker Labs.
Mhm. And most incubators, when you start off, you still need to pay a fee in order to rent the space and be a part of the program. But how do like low cost slash free options work, such as golden ticket programs? And are they, would you say, common among incubators, accelerators around the country?
So in the case of a golden ticket program, which Baker Labs just ran its first golden ticket program sponsored by AbbVie, the prize is free rent in the incubator. And that is done through a competitive process where startup companies respond to a call for applications, usually around some kind of theme. It could be around a technology, it could be around a disease, whatever a sponsoring organization is interested in. And then those companies will be invited to pitch, and then a prize will be awarded. And that prize is really important for a startup company because it's that a year of free rent. Golden ticket programs have been around for just a few years. They're not all that common, but I would encourage any startup entrepreneurs to look at other prizes that can be offered, again, that help you grow your company without having to give up equity. So you may hear it elsewhere in the series, but one of the most valuable things that a startup entrepreneur has is the equity. And so giving that up and finding that value for it, for the contribution of that equity is going to be really important. So in the case of a golden ticket, you don't give up any equity.
Mm, okay, very cool. Um, all right, so say I'm a new entrepreneur, I have an amazing idea that I want to run with, and I want to find a space. What should I do when I'm going through this process of finding a space, and what resources exist to help me guide my search?
So first thing is to check, are you ready for a space?
Mhm.
Space costs money. So you'll need to I would advise that you need to have about 6 months of operating capital. So you want to create a budget and then go raise the money around that budget. In the course of that process, you'll want to be confirming that that other people agree with you on the budget and that you can get adequate capital for that. Um, and then what do you want to accomplish in the space before you start your search? I think answering that question is incredibly important. And who's going to be doing the work? That's also incredibly important. And then when you finally get down to it, if you're ready, you should probably define your workflow. What are you doing in the lab every day, day in and day out? Because then you'll identify the resources that you need to advance your project scientifically, because that's really what the incubator will empower you to do. And there are resources out there. I think at my time at QB3, we've spoken to hundreds of entrepreneurs every year, advising them on where to look for space. Keep in mind, when you're looking for space, not only are you interested in looking at the actual tangible resources, but the community around you. Again, startup companies don't grow by themselves. They really grow with a very strong support network of individuals. And they could be just your peers that you see day in and day out in neighboring companies. So that's a start in terms of how would you go about looking for space and what are the things to look for.
Mm-hmm. Okay, got it. And so let's say I have a space that I want to move forward with. What should I consider when I examine the leasing terms for this space? Is there anything that I should look out for in terms of maybe IP clauses or in terms of like stocks and equity?
Yeah, so in the incubator model, most cases, the things that you're looking for, first of all, is price, and what are you really getting for that price? So a bench isn't just enough. You need to look at the whole comprehensive list of services that you need, and so make sure you understand that. And that's going to be essentially part of the lease. I think also important is leasing terms, meaning how long is the lease? Is it 1 year? Is it shorter? What suits your flexibility? You may wish to have a space for a relatively short period of time, but the lease terms may not fit with kind of what you need. But generally, incubators, though, they generally cater well to that startup market. So in terms of IP, there generally are not too many places that include an IP clause. Usually, it's basically a first right of refusal type of clause if you're going to see one, but it's pretty rare to see it. The other thing I think you want to just think about again is who is the landlord in any of these spaces when you begin your search. There are corporate incubators whose mission is aligned to the corporate goals. That may mean that they're not interested in your technology at all. It's kind of good to find that out early on. There are university affiliated incubators like Baker Labs, whose mission is really much broader to help bring technologies to marketplace that benefit society broadly. This is called doing well by doing good, or double bottom line. It's possible to be financially successful and really improve the state of the world. So identifying your landlord and knowing what their goals are is also really important, I would say. So those are some of the things to look at.
Okay. And to round off this interview, what final words of advice would you give for students looking to either start their own startups or to just explore the startup entrepreneurship space?
In a place like UC Berkeley, you don't have to walk very far to find an enormous number of resources
Mm-hmm.
around you. And that's going to be the first place I think most students will look. And those resources can take many different forms. There are classes, there are competitions, there are workshops, there are hackathons, all kinds of things available. And but the key thing to find really are, I think, co-founders who share your vision. Building a strong team is perhaps the single most important determinant of kind of the longevity of a startup company. So if you have an idea, start talking about it with your peers and see what they say. Also, it's really important to have an honest self-assessment about what your strengths are and what kind of roles you'd like to play in the growth of your company, because it's very unlikely that you can master both the technical development side and the business development side over the long haul. Every company starts small, very few people, with maybe one founder or two co-founders. But understanding that you can't do it all, and finding complementary skills in others is really vital to creating that strong team that people will invest in.
All right, that sounds like a great note to end on. Thank you so much, Gino, for participating in our speaker series.
My pleasure.
Yeah, it was great having you. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Simon.
Thanks for checking out the EBI seminar series. If you enjoyed the series, please like this video and subscribe to the EBI YouTube channel for more content on entrepreneurship and biotech. All of our social media will also be linked in the description box down below. Thanks for watching.